But what you'll see, I think, is the acceptance and we're the next vegan vegetarian thing. Like it'll just be something that's on all the menus. It'll stop being juice boxes, I hope, right? Death to the juice box. I don't care if it's Pathfinder or Ritual or Liars or whatever, but like this isn't soccer practice. I'm not 6. I don't have orange slices and a Capri Sun. I want a cocktail. If I'm going to a bar, I would like a cocktail, or I will just drink seltzer water. Like I don't want the juice and syrups and stuff. There's enough out there now that bars should be able to create cocktails and non-alc cocktails with the same amount of enthusiasm and dedication and commitment, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, that's hospitality. And when I walk into a bar and you have 37 drinks and you're roto-vapping and you're infusing and you're smoking and you're clarifying, and then you have lemon, ginger, and simple syrup as your non-alc drink, that tells me that you don't really care about me as a consumer, which is not what hospitality is about.
Welcome to the Sober Curator podcast, where sobriety isn't just a lifestyle choice, it's the ultimate life hack. I'm Alysse Bryson, your fearless guide to a world where hangovers are canceled, fun is mandatory, and we still know how to shut down a dance floor, just with better shoes.
And I'm Tamara Routley, aka T-Bouge, your co-pilot, chaos coordinator, and the one who keeps Alysse from turning this podcast into a full-blown reality show. Buckle up, sober party people.
From lifestyle and travel to pop culture and zero-proof cocktails, we're serving up the stories, trends, and guests that prove sobriety isn't just about what you're missing. It's about finally remembering where you left your keys. Let's get the party started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sober Curator podcast, where we dive into all things pop culture, sober living, and everything in between. I'm your host, Alysse Bryson, and today's episode is going to be a real treat, especially for all my fellow cocktail enthusiasts who are navigating the sober life. I'm also excited to have Alex Nyman, known as our publisher and the founder of the Break Free Foundation, here as my sidekick today, so I won't be running the show alone. Our guest today is Michael Toscano, and he is a Brooklyn-based sober hospitality and sales professional with a deep-rooted background in the world of craft cocktails, which means he wasn't always sober. He was the lead bartender at Dante, which was named the #1 bar in the world in 2019. That's kind of a big deal. He's also worked as the New York City Woodford Reserve brand ambassador, very fancy, a role he held while beginning and maintaining his early sobriety. That I can't wait to hear about. If that wasn't enough, he helped relaunch Frank Sinatra's legendary La Dolce Vita in Beverly Hills, where his LDV Gibson was named one of Esquire's top 25 martinis in the U.S. for 2023. Now, Michael is the East Coast Regional Director for one of the fastest growing non-alcoholic spirits on the market, the Pathfinder, which we have featured on the Sober Curator for many, many years. He's a dedicated husband, a dog dad, and a firm believer in good vibes. And today he's here to share his journey, his insights, and maybe even a few recommendations for the best sober-friendly drinks out there. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, and such an incredible introduction. It is an absolute honor to be here, and I'm excited to dig in and have a little talk today.
Well, we are super excited that you are here. You know, a lot of people think that sobriety is just about quitting drinking. That if you just stop drinking, your life is magically just rainbows and butterflies and puppies. It is about puppies. Sobriety is definitely about puppies. But the real journey happens in those moments where we realize it's about so much more. So I would love to hear about a pivotal moment in your life that changed after you already got sober, that made a difference.
I feel like the viewers are going to think you know the story, the way you teed that up, what I'm about to share, but it's perfect.
I know. We just met like 5 minutes ago.
I know. I don't think anybody's going to believe it. But no, I have a very, very, very distinct moment when I realized that my sobriety was going to be a permanent thing, as well as was going to require some work. So I grew up around sobriety, right? I have a grandmother, an uncle, and a mother that are all in recovery. So very familiar with the AA space, very familiar with the sober space, and was always kind of hell bent on not being one of those people, right? And so even when I had acknowledged that I had an issue and I should probably stop drinking, I still wasn't in the space where I believed that AA or sobriety was going to be the true road for me. And then when I stopped drinking, I thought exactly what you said. This is great. Things are going to be great. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be healthy. Things are going to be awesome, and whatever, right? 3 months approximately into being sober, my wife and I are headed into the city to do our jobs. She's going to her bar. I'm going out to do account business with Woodford Reserve, and we're on the train platform, and I'm not in a very good mood for whatever reason. And Brooke just looks at me and just says, "Michael, why are you being such a dick right now?" And I didn't have an answer. I had no answer for her as far as like what it was. And it shook me in that moment because I didn't know. And the reality that hit me in that moment was I'm not dealing with a lot of things that I should be dealing with now that I'm not escaping through alcohol. And I was not doing the work in that moment leading up to that. And so that was a really pivotal space for me to recognize that like there were some things I needed to get to and some work I needed to start doing if I was really going to live this life and make the most of this choice that I'd made to cut alcohol out of it. So that was the moment that I really realized that it was about to get hard.
I totally hear that, and I've totally been there. And I also want to just pause for just a moment. Your wife's name is Brooke, and you live in Brooklyn?
That is correct.
And is her middle name Lynn, just by any chance?
No, coincidentally, my wife does not have a middle name. So no middle name there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, it's adorable. Brooke from Brooklyn. It's adorable. Okay. So you've built this incredible career in hospitality, and now you're working for the Pathfinder. Do you want to tell us anything about the jump from Woodford to Pathfinder, or do you want to just jump right into Pathfinder?
No, we can. Yeah. I mean, I think it is important. And I feel like every time I have a chance to talk about, me making this decision, so coming out from behind the bar, transitioning into a role with Woodford Reserve is a huge deal. And I have previous to my corporate or to my beverage space, I had a corporate life. So that's also why I've been able to transition into brand work. I had a B2B sales career before I got into the bar, suit and tie, safe face, no tattoos, like very much that life. And so going to Woodford was a natural progression for a lot of reasons. I could take two of my careers, put them together. Woodford Reserve has been around me coming from Indianapolis, Indiana. I got married in Louisville. Like bourbon is part of my history and my story. But 6 months into that job, that's 6 months out from behind a bar as well, you start to understand that the behaviors that you think are normal are not. And then you also start realizing, listen, I work for Woodford Reserve in New York City. I have got to have my shit together, and I don't. And the only way out is to take a break from this and try to get my act together, really. But at that time, I knew Woodford Reserve in and out. I knew the brand. I knew the flavor profiles. I knew how to make cocktails. I knew how to talk about it. I could sell the brand without drinking it. And so when I had made this decision to stop drinking and kind of took a couple weeks of like, I'm drying out from tails, I kind of made some things up to not tell people I had stopped. And then when I had finally said, listen, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm done, the first person to reach out to me from Brown-Forman was Elizabeth McCall, who is who at the time was the assistant master distiller, who is now the master distiller of Woodford Reserve. She reached out and said, we got you 100%. Like, don't worry about it. Like, we have your back. We support you. And, you're a valuable piece of this team, and we're here for you. And, I'm getting a little emotional. So like, I always have to tell that story because
that's a really big deal. I don't know if people listening understand what a big deal that is in the corporate space for a big brand like that, but they didn't have to do that. And it's really cool that they did.
Yeah. And they rallied around me, and like, I left that job, and I have a Woodford Reserve barrelhead that all the executive team, all the distillers signed like in my house. They were an incredible team. And then ultimately what happened with that was I needed to get out of that chair. I felt like I was holding that space up for somebody else that could fill that role and give the brand what it needed, because I was just no longer authentically living that life. I actually transitioned to another non-alcoholic brand after Woodford Reserve for a short period of time, helping kind of launch that brand for a myriad of reasons. It just wasn't the right fit. And that's how my wife and I kind of ended up out in LA. Life kind of pushed us out there a little bit. But in that role, I went to Seattle Cocktail Week. Craig Ravinsky, who's our global brand ambassador for the Pathfinder, who's from Seattle, had actually just moved to New York and was back in Seattle for Seattle Cocktail Week. We met at his bar, Life on Mars, which is where the Pathfinder launched, and became friends, and truly like struck up a friendship in that moment, in that trip. So while that job was short-lived with that brand and it didn't work out, it allowed me to develop a connection with Craig that really kind of led me down this road of finding the Pathfinder. My wife and I went to LA. We're there for about a year, not our scene, not our space. We got back to New York as soon as life would provide us the opportunity. And then it all kind of worked out, falling in line with Pathfinder. I was in a position where I was unable to operate within the non-alc space until April of 2024. And that is when we got distribution set up in New York, which that's a whole other story. But distribution in New York with non-alcoholic products is really difficult to set up, but we got it established. They were ready to hire a brand ambassador in New York. I was able to start working in the non-alc space again, and it just kind of all worked out. So, and I've been with Pathfinder since, and it's been incredible. It's the best job I've ever had.
I love that story for you and for us. I think that's so cool. Especially, of course, love that Seattle is part of the story in Life on Mars, because I'm very fond of that restaurant and many of the owners. Now, what I want to hear is, how did you and Alex come to know each other? Because I know you were involved in Break Free New York Fashion Week in the fall of 2024. So how did that come to be?
Yeah. So Alex reached out to us, to the company, I think maybe through the hello@drinkthepathfinder.com email, and just I guess shot her shot and asked if we would be interested in participating in this incredible event that she was hosting. That was passed on to me through our leadership team, and just reading through the opportunity to be a part of something like that, it was just a no-brainer for me. I think we talked about this a little bit before the show, but being in a space with people that have gone through such a difficult thing and come out the other side and are so empowered by that. And that is, it's a space that I've just never been exposed to. And I remember not really understanding or comprehending it until about halfway through the event. And I actually texted my wife and I was like, I will never, ever not be a part of this going forward. Like it was such a powerful thing to see these women just, I don't think there's words I could say right now that would do justice to what was happening that night in that room. It was an incredible experience. And like, I told everybody at the brand, I was like, we're doing this for as long as we can, because it was such a special thing to be a part of. So, and that's how we got connected and how now she's stuck with me.
And how do you feel about that, Alex?
I am delighted to be stuck with Pathfinder. We got a lot of really great feedback from the attendees for the event. We even had some people slip into our DMs and ask us like, hey, what was that drink that was being served? It was like really good. And I remember thinking after I had sampled it at the event, I was like, wait, this isn't alcohol, right? Like it's very strong. It's very different from some of the other brands that I've sampled or tasted. And we had a demand to not do something that was just like so fruity or tasted like a soda. Like they wanted something that would feel like that authentic dry cocktail experience. And I feel like we really got that with the Pathfinder, and especially with the custom drink menu that Michael put together. It was just a really, really great compliment to the entire experience. And I also love just in general how the Pathfinder branding is. It's so eye-catching and captivating. And I think that was probably the most swarmed the mocktail bar has been, because people were just drawn into it because it's different. There's this like random ass looking eye, and it's like, oh, like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? Like, what are they serving? And the way the bottle is designed, like you don't really realize that you're drinking something non-alcoholic. Like it's not like, not to rag on like a fever tree or like a liquid death, but like you kind of know what you're going to get with those. And it's just like a dressed up soda that maybe they put a little bit of lipstick on it and it's a little more daring. It's really something that you can mix and can be multi-purposeful, which is what I really like when it comes to considering drink sponsors to work with for our event, especially when it comes to having people who are passionate about the brand, can speak from a place of lived experience. And it just makes it so much more impactful to have a partnership like that. Now, something that I was wondering is there's a certain level of burnout that you can get no matter how much you love your job or you love where you are. What keeps you coming back to Pathfinder and keeping you excited about the brand and about the work?
I think I understand what the work means, right? I understand that what we're doing is creating a space for people to still feel involved and still feel like they belong in an atmosphere and in a space that doesn't always feel like that for people that don't drink. But also we're offering alternatives for people that want to continue to drink but want to do it responsibly, right? Just because I can't do that doesn't mean other people can't, right? I've said that a lot to people. Alcohol is not the problem, right? That's not the issue in the situation. It's me, right? So Pathfinder allows me to have something that authentically feels like a cocktail. And I work for them and I share the same thing you do. Sometimes I look around like I'm in a non-alcoholic bar right now. Like there's no way there's alcohol in this cocktail, right? Which is a little weird. But I would also say, and this is something that happened today, and this is twofold probably, right? This is the result of me being in a space on behalf of Pathfinder at a bar a few months ago in another market and having a conversation with a bartender who was going through it and was like 3 days in to the decisions they were making in their lives, to the point where they weren't comfortable even sampling the Pathfinder. Like, listen, I need a full break for a minute. I got an email from this person. I gave them my card, right? They were having and I said, listen, I'm almost 6 years into my sobriety. This is not about the job. This is about me as a person that recognizes another person that's going through some stuff. I'm here if you ever want to talk. Right? Like you don't have to, I don't know you, whatever. I got an email from them today that they're 50 days sober today. And I haven't heard from this person. I haven't heard from this person since that, you know what I mean? I've just moved on with doing everything else. And this person today sent me an email and this is the third time on this interview, I'm already getting like emotional. So for me, I get to authentically represent myself in a space and provide a product that genuinely helps people. It's the closest thing that I can do in my life to being of service. And this job provides me that opportunity to do that. And there's no other thing I could be doing right now that would do that. And so that's what, keeps me focused on those days that maybe, I don't want to talk about herbs and botanicals anymore.
Well, and I think, that's what I love about this community. And I don't really care if you identify as sober or in recovery. Like whatever labels make you feel good about your journey, great. But if you're here and if you're listening, it's like, that's what we do. We show up for other people, even complete strangers, and we do it authentically without expecting anything in return. Quite honestly, we're surprised when we hear 50 days later from somebody, right? So I think that's so cool. I love that you shared that part of your story. It was a good question, Alex. What do you see like in the space and with the trends? Because and you got to tell me, Michael, I've been telling this to people for a couple of years now. So you need to like tell me if I need to stop saying it or if I can keep saying it. But what I think is going to happen, I think by the year of 2030, we're going to see that people are looking at and I'm not anti-alcohol. I want to say that first. It doesn't work for me because when it goes in my body, I become a complete asshole and I make really poor decisions. And so I think by the year of 2030, based off all the research that I've read about Gen Z, consuming so much less alcohol than the generations before, I think what we're going to see is that drinking is still happening. It's still readily available, but it's going to be somewhat taboo, almost like smoking is today. A lot of people still smoke, but there's a lot of people that gave it up. right? And so, and I can say that as a former smoker, Marlboro Menthol Lights, may you rest in peace. And so I'm just curious if you see the trend going that way as well.
Yes is the short answer. I think there's a lot more to say about it. I think ultimately, I've seen probably the same reports you have, right? People have talked about alcohol is going the way of big tobacco, and we are seeing those trends. But to your point, people will always be drinking. I also think what we can't predict and what we I don't think there's any way for us to know is the generation that comes after. If there's a pendulum swing back towards that direction. But what I do see as the future, more so maybe than non-alcoholic completely, is the low ABV space. I think that is where we're going to start seeing people asking for, for anybody out there that's still drinking, if you're drinking an Aperol Spritz, you're drinking a low ABV cocktail. I hate to break it to you, but you are. I do think that people will start looking at, I tell people, like, I want my great Sunday to not be a shitty Monday. So how do I make that happen? And I think low ABV is the way, where you can still have a little bit of alcohol, you can still have all the flavor, all the body you want, but you have a cocktail that isn't going to hurt you as much, on the other side of the mountain that you're currently climbing. And so I think that is going to be more prevalent than necessarily not out completely. But what you'll see, I think, is the acceptance and just we're the next vegan vegetarian thing. Like, it'll just be something that's on all the menus. It'll stop being juice boxes, I hope, right? Death to the juice box. I don't care if it's Pathfinder or Ritual or Liars or whatever, but like, this isn't soccer practice. I'm not 6. I don't have orange slices and a Capri Sun. I want a cocktail. If I'm going to a bar, I would like a cocktail, or I will just drink seltzer water. Like, I don't want the juice and syrups and stuff. There's enough out there now that bars should be able to create cocktails and non-alcoholic cocktails with the same amount of enthusiasm and dedication and commitment, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, that's hospitality. And when I walk into a bar and you have 37 drinks and you're roto-vapping and you're infusing and you're smoking and you're clarifying, and then you have lemon, ginger, and simple syrup as your non-alc drink, that tells me that you don't really care about me as a consumer, which is not what hospitality is about, right? So I think that's what we're going to start seeing. You'll start seeing the buy-in from bars and bar teams and mixologists, if you will, to committing to creating non-alcoholic cocktails that are delicious and feel like a drink. And then I think you'll start seeing low ABV becoming more of a prevalent option versus, give me a reverse Manhattan, right? Give me 2 ounces of vermouth and 1 ounce of bourbon. Give me a reverse Gibson. Like, those are things we were doing at Dante years ago, and people really identified as like, okay, I get it. And it still tastes great, but I'm not going to necessarily like ruin the rest of my night. So I think that'll happen faster, but sure. I think alcohol is hurting across the board right now, for sure.
I just recently heard a term called zebra striping, and I can't do this because I have to be abstinence only, because I don't have an off button. So if even a little goes in, then I'm going to just go, right? But there are people out there that don't have that same affliction. And so I've heard zebra striping, where you have one alcoholic beverage and then one non-alcoholic beverage, and throughout the night you go back and forth. Is that a thing?
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing. It's my wife is, she runs a bar in Soho called Milady's. It's Julie Reiner's newest spot. And they see that all the time. Before she'll have people come in and do, whether it's just a regular beer and then a non-alcoholic beer. They also have options on their menu to do cocktails, no and low. So they'll have people that are like really like the flavor profile of a cocktail, but the first one's full proof, and then maybe the next one they do a low proof. And then she's also integrated us into cocktails as just a modifier. So people are drinking this margarita style cocktail. It's called a window treatment that has an ounce of Pathfinder in it, that they don't even understand. They don't even ask what it is. It's just a flavor profile that's in the tequila that they're drinking. And so those are things that they're seeing too there, for sure. But yeah, zebra striping is happening, and I think it'll continue to. Maybe the stripes get a little bit wider throughout the night, but they'll be there.
Cute. Yeah.
When exactly did you decide to wife Brooke?
Basically, the moment I met her is the short answer. I don't think she knew that, but listen. Every single every single podcast that I've ever done, I will always give my wife the flowers, because at the end of the day, I could not do this without her. Like, there is no way I would have made this decision. I think I would have just continued down this road until I really had done some damage. And she has been by my side through all of it and has given me the space to work through what I needed to work through. She's been honest with me when she needed to be honest with me. And she was, and she's been incredible. So we met in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is where we moved to New York from, in 2014. Yeah, 2014. We got married in 2016 and then moved to New York. So we're coming up on 9 years married and I guess 11 years together. So, but yeah, she is like, there's no one else in the world I could be married to than her. There's no one else in the world for me. And she has just been she's kept me sober more than I have. Like, she's absolutely incredible.
And how did you meet? Was it a meet cute? Was it a online dating?
No,
you don't have to answer, but I'm going to keep asking questions.
No. Listen, I will talk about my wife. We will go 2 hours. I will talk about my wife for as long as you want to. She is my entire world. So we met. Southern Wine and Spirits as a distributor, and in Indianapolis, Indiana, I got on with a cocktail bar called Libertine Liquor Bar, which is unfortunately no longer around. But in 2013, there was 2 cocktail bars kind of getting things going in Indianapolis, and I got to be a part of one of those. But the scene in general was starting to kind of pick up steam. So the distributor did an 8-week educational course called the Spirits Academy. And it was just bartenders from around the city. It was Wednesdays, 3 hours in the middle of the day. And it was a room full of craft cocktail bartenders and people trying to be craft cocktail bartenders. And then my wife. We worked at the JW Marriott, which is a huge property in Indianapolis. Indianapolis, if you don't know, is a convention town. So it was the highest volume bar in JW's portfolio. And so she worked in the sports bar and was getting into the cocktail scene. And she walked into the room and I hit my buddy Puck on the arm and just literally was like, who in the hell is that? Because I'd never seen her before because she wasn't in our circle of crafty bartender people, right? And then, through some questions and some light stalking, I found out where she worked and when she was there. And I just kind of walked in one day and she came around the corner of the bar and she kind of was like, what are you doing here? I was like, oh, I'm here to see you. And she chuckled and left. And I was like, this is going great. And then she comes back around and she's like, seriously, what are you doing here? And I was like, no, I think you're beautiful and I don't know you, but I'd like to. And like, I'm an adult and you can say no, but I would love to take you out. And then my friend and I sat down and had dinner and she was super uncomfortable. And she said she couldn't take my phone number because it was against hotel policy, which of course I thought was just her not really going to reach out. So I gave her my number and a couple of days later, she texted me. It was 11:58 p.m. on a Tuesday. And it just said, hey, ... it's Brooke. I took a screenshot and I sent it to my buddy who was with me. And I was like, I just said game on. And then we've been together basically ever since. Yeah.
I love every part of that.
That's adorable. You shot you took your shot. You took your shot. Yeah. I love that. I had
to. And we were sitting at Tales of the Cocktail at a session that like some bar owners we went because we wanted to open a bar. That was kind of what we wanted to do. And I just wrote on a cocktail napkin. I said, if we're ever going to do anything in this industry, we have to leave Indianapolis. And I grew up in the military. So I've moved around a lot. So for me, it was, I didn't want to stay in Indy ever really. And so I just kind of passed it to her on a cocktail napkin. And year and a half later, we were in New York and it's been full steam ahead ever since.
I love that.
Now I have a 2-part question. Okay. One is, I kind of want to hear more about having one of Esquire's top 25 martinis. Was this a non-alc that you made? And if not, what would your non-alc version be? And how would you try to get that spot again in the non-alc space?
That's a great question. So no, it was not a non-alc. It was a full-proof Gibson martini. The recipe, I truthfully, I'll put me on the spot. I cannot remember the gin that I've selected for this cocktail, but the trick to like a Gibson, right, is a dry martini, right? So gin, a little bit of vermouth, and then a bar spoon of typically would just be like cocktail onion brine. Our chef did a house-made jardinara for our bread service, and I was using the brine from that instead of olives, and then we had the pickled vegetables on a skewer, so it was really decadent, savory, and beautiful. From a non-alcoholic perspective, I think I would do a non-alcoholic gin. And I think Seedlip's Garden actually might be kind of cool because you would get some of the vegetal notes in that. I think would be really neat. And then verjus. I would probably use a verjus instead of some type of like non-alcoholic vermouth or something like that. Some verjus, you to get some little tang and some bite. And then I would track down that chef and I would I would get the Jardinara again because the brine and the Jardinara is really what made that drink special. And then we had a blackened garlic oil that we dropped on top. And so he basically roasted the garlic to char, and then we pureed it with oil, and it became this really cool, like these 3 black spots you would have floating on top with the pickled vegetables. And then you could swirl it and you would get this really great, like silky texture inside the cocktail as well. And they would line the glass, and the aromatic from the garlic with the brine was really special. So that's probably where I would go. Even though I work for Pathfinder and that was an opportunity to talk about Pathfinder, I don't know that I would put it in a Gibson Martini.
Well, before we move into our closing segment of what we call sober shots, and don't worry, no one's going to restart their day count, I would like to hear about the new ready-to-drink Negroni that you all have. I have not tried it yet, but I have seen it on the site. So what can you tell me about it?
So I can tell you that the Pathfinder as a brand, we wanted to make a Pathfinder Negroni. We wanted to make something that was authentic to our brand. We also wanted it to be a true Negroni, 3 ingredients, not carbonated, something that would look and feel like a Negroni you would have had at Dante or any other restaurant that you would go into. So our team got together and created a non-alcoholic gin and a non-alcoholic red bitter that we will never release. It will never be a part of our portfolio because it's not a part of our brand, but it was what we needed to do to make a true Pathfinder Negroni. So, and those ingredients are then put together into a can. There's a little bit of a nitro stabilizer to it. So when you pour it out, it's still, but they'll get a little nice bit of crema on top when you pour it over ice. It's meant to be enjoyed on ice, not necessarily out of the can with an orange twist. And it's incredible. There's no other way to put it. And I think it's one of those things where if you like phony Negronis, there is still space to enjoy the St. Agrestis phony Negroni. And there's also space to enjoy the Pathfinder Negroni because while they share a name, they are different cocktails and it is a different serve and it is a different experience. So I think for us, we also recognize that there was a space for this to be a non-carbonated cocktail that you could, serve in a restaurant over ice and the guests would still feel like they were having a true Negroni.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I also want to double down on what Alex said previously. I also am a big fan of your guys' branding. I have the bandana that they gave out in the early days. I don't know if that one's been retired or not, but I do have it. I think the branding's really cool. I was very intrigued when there was the campaign that involved the Ouija board. I thought that was very clever. I didn't get one, but I thought it was very clever. All right. Well, we're going to go into our Sober Shots closing segment. This is just where I ask you really rapid fire questions and you answer them or not. And we know that you're not like obsessed with pop culture like I am, and that's okay. But I am curious, what is your go-to comfort show or movie, or what are you watching now?
Oh, you will probably find Moneyball on in our house once a week, maybe twice. With a close second of just any Harry Potter film you can think of. But it's baseball season. So Moneyball, Mr. Baseball, Bull Durham, Little Big League. Like my wife and I are baseball fanatics. So those things are in the house all the time. But hey, we just watched Order of the Phoenix last night or 2 nights ago. So that's always a good one too.
All right. They're at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, which is one of my favorite places. They're getting ready to have a new exhibit that is all about an artist that was early in the baseball art phase. I don't know the name off the top of my head because I'm not super sporty, but I'm going to look it up. I'm going to send you the link.
Yeah, please do.
You might be interested in that. Besides Pathfinder, is there another favorite NA brand that you're like, I definitely keep this in my fridge or I keep this in my cabinet?
I would tell you, for me, beer in a shot is kind of one of my favorite things. So I would give you my favorite non-alcoholic beer brand right now is a brand called Good Time. They're based out of New York. They launched with with an IPA. They now have a wheat and a Pilsner as well. And we go really great with them. So the guys from Attaboy here in New York have a bar next door now called Good Guys, and they have Good Time on draft. And they put us into a tumbler and top it with Good Time. And it's like a Pocon style Spanish beer. And it is incredible. And they do like 10 fish and charcuterie there and like all these incredible dips. So it's perfect. So Good Time is always in my fridge.
Alex, you might need to go test that out since you're our local New York resident.
We used it at the event. Actually, I had them bring it in for the Flat Out event. We'll have it again this year for sure.
Oh, hell yeah.
Well, and I'm going to have to tell Justin. Justin is our resident NA beer nerd, and he has reviewed, I've lost track of the number, but I think he's reviewed over 125 NA beers for the site. We actually made the list of the top NA or the top beer blogs, the top 100, and we're the only NA beer blog on the list. So we thought that was pretty cool. What is your perfect sober night out in New York City with Brooke from Brooklyn?
I'm going to tell you, my perfect night out with Brooke in Brooklyn is not leaving our neighborhood. I can tell you that. So within a 4-block radius of our house, there are 4 incredible Italian restaurants: Evelina, Rosticeria Evelina, Lorena, and Aida. For me, it is 100% going there with her, sitting down, a full appetizers, pasta, burrata, steak, and then maybe a little ice cream. And then stopping by the bodega for more ice cream and getting on the couch with our dog and watching one of those films that we just recently spoke about in our sweatpants. And that's probably because we sit on each side of the couch, Morrison lays between us, and watch TV. And that is ultimately the perfect night for me and my wife, I think.
That's great. Alex, before we wrap, do you have any more questions for Michael?
If the Sober Curator were to be a mocktail, what would you put in it?
Ooh.
Oh, the cocktail questions count for you. And I'm just trying to think about it a little bit. Okay, so I think it would be tropical. Let's just start there, right? I love a jungle bird, right? So some red bitter. I think there's got to be some kind of shrub involved. A little bit of tang, a little bit of zip, a little bit of sweetness, if you will. Maybe some effervescence. Let's go with ginger beer, because I just feel like there's some spice on the set, which I can also appreciate as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pathfinder. So you've got Pathfinder, maybe some non-alcoholic red bitter. Wilderton's bittersweet is incredible. A little ginger beer and some type of shrub to really zing it up, like a pineapple, like apple cider vinegar, pineapple shrub. I think we would be cooking with gas right there. I think that would be a pretty strong cocktail. Yep.
That could
and
be
a highball
something.
glass.
I can see
A
it.
little charred pineapple.
Oh, you had me at the charred pineapple. Man, I love pineapple.
Maybe crushed ice so we could like stretch it.
Oh, now you're speaking my language. Have you ever had deep fried pineapple? Have you ever had deep fried pineapple?
Deep fried pineapple? Mm-mm.
Oh
no. Where do you even?
Please tell me where I can procure this.
It was at a restaurant called Monkey Pod in Hawaii. So I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's pretty bougie in Hawaii. Like just casually, like in Hawaii.
Coincidentally, my wife is going to Hawaii in a couple of weeks with ladies for a pop-up, so I'll just have her be on the lookout.
Okay,
maybe she can have some.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I'll let her know.
Highly recommend. Well, Michael, before we wrap up, where can people find you and find the Pathfinder?
So the Pathfinder is at Drink the Pathfinder on Instagram. I believe we are working on a TikTok space as well, so you can always find us there. You can find me on Instagram. It's just at the Michael Toscano. So really original, really hard to find. Yeah. And find me in New York. Let me know when you're in town. Let's hang out.
That's amazing. I do. My sister lives in Long Island. She used to live in Brooklyn, meaning she used to be cool. And then they moved to the burbs because they, had they just got 2 cats. Like they're doing that whole thing. But because of that, I do get to New York a couple times a year. So I will definitely take you up on that for sure.
Please do. Please do.
All right, everyone. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. Michael teared up like 2 or 3 times. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and telling us all about Brooke from Brooklyn. That was amazing. And most importantly, you showed us that being sober does not mean giving up drinks. It does not mean giving up great vibes. or a career in hospitality. And to all our listeners, please remember, getting sober matters. Staying sober matters more. This has been the Sober Curator podcast. I'm Alysse Bryson. Until the next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep it sober. Thanks for tuning in, because let's be real, we're way more fun than your ex's drunk texts.
If you laughed, learned, or just need more of our voices in your life, honestly, I mean, who wouldn't? Hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and send this episode to your sober or your I swear I'm only drinking on the weekends besties.
And if you have a story, feedback, or hey, maybe you just want to slide into our DMs like it's 2012, well, you know we're here for it. Find more curated magic at thesobercurator.com. And remember, getting sober matters, staying sober matters more. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep it sober.